What is going on, Ravens flock, and welcome back here again to another episode of the Ravens Way podcast. Joining me, as always, is Boss. Boss, how we doing? A somber couple of days between Sunday and yesterday with all the news and everything that's going on. So how we doing?
Yeah, man, it's been a tough week for Ravens fans. It's been a good week for Orioles fans, but tough week for Ravens fans. They really missed a golden opportunity, maybe the best of Lamar Jackson era. To be honest, I mean, they had the best roster, potentially the best regular season team, a star-studded dream team type of coaching staff, and it's just a really tough way to end that season. I'm searching for answers just as much as anybody. So and I know you are at the game. Give us the kind of the vibes, the emotional roller coaster of the game day experience, and then we'll kind of dig into some takeaways from the game.
Yeah, so you start out the game, and to me, as soon as I don't know if Kelsey was the first touchdown. I can't remember. I was at the game.
Yeah, that was the first one.
Okay.
The second one was Pacheco. Yep.
Yeah. So as soon as that Kelsey touchdown happened, at least for me, I'm like, that's not how that was supposed to go. Hamilton was supposed to bat that ball away or knock it out somehow. And at least for me, as soon as that happened, I'm like, all right, this game is probably not going to go the way that I thought. And then you have the Ravens kind of punch back with a Zay Flowers deep pass, and the stadium. Oh my gosh! I mean, it was loud. It was ruckus. As soon as that happened, I thought, all right, maybe we can run with them. This is all we're waiting for, the shootout with the Chiefs, going toe to toe, swinging back and forth, and then it just kind of crumbled a little bit, and the Ravens couldn't move the football, and then Kansas City scores, and then we go into halftime, and you're feeling, well, okay, well, I mean, it could be worse, and then as soon as that Zay Flowers fumble happened, I was like, all right, feel like the energy kind of got sucked out of the stadium, but it was loud. I was screaming the whole time. It was it was fun for a while it lasted, but it was just walking out the stadium. It was just like people were. It wasn't like silent. People were just like, I can't believe that just happened. So,
I mean, first time there in what, 11 years?
Yeah.
And that's Harbaugh's third conference championship loss compared to one win, correct?
Yeah.
I believe so. Yep, because they lost to the Steelers in 2008 on Troy P. Pick. To me, the pick was the we're not going to get this one,
Yeah.
But I really think the tone got set in the pregame with that little whatever the hell you want to call that, but with Kelsey and Tucker and gamesmanship, and then Millette, and then Kelsey said, and I really think, who knows, but I kind of feel like if KC starts with the ball, the Ravens probably win that game. If they win the coin toss, they probably win that game. Because even if KC gets 7, the Ravens aren't chasing it as much as they were. That fourth and 1 call from the 30, Harbaugh just put his cojones on the table. And I thought that was brilliant, and it was great, and it paid off. But they were just in their head. Kelsey and Mahomes were just in their head. And once they got that lead, they just had the Ravens panicky and chasing it, and Lamar hadn't faced a deficit and, going back 2-3 seasons. And it's a testament to how good they are in the regular season. But it also says something about how they're maybe inexperienced in the postseason.
Yeah, definitely thought that was something that I was talking about all year was what do the Ravens look like in a negative game script? And I thought maybe that Rams game, them going back and forth, may have gave them a little bit of the taste of it, but clearly not. Clearly, it didn't seem like they were very calm or poised or prepared for that moment, and such an inverse to the tail of the season, because it seems like all season they were very calm, poised, and prepared for all the games going down the stretch. So tough. It was a tough way to lose. And I still I'm still thinking about it, even though I try to you try to move on, but it's so.
I mean, how can you not? I mean, we do this we've been doing this every single week for 6 months, this podcast, and looking forward to the Super Bowl. And everybody that's in the football industry, it's week after week. You get in a routine, and here comes the next game, and then all of a sudden, boom, you don't have a next game. Just get into it a little bit. The Mahomes to Kelce connection in that first quarter was just unstoppable. I mean, Hamilton had Kelce in the womb, in the cocoon, and he still caught that touchdown. There was another play. I think it was about a 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. They had Mahomes under all kind of duress. They hit him as he's throwing. The ball's spinning like a top. And somehow Kelce, you just have to tip your hat to that kind of stuff. Eventually the defense, steadied themselves, leveled up, and they forced 5 straight punts in the second half. But they couldn't generate a takeaway. And I think the ball out quick of Mahomes and his ability to protect the ball, the defense played well. The defense played well enough to win, but they didn't make a championship play. And, it is what it is. You needed more from the offense because it's just been so many postseason games now in the Lamar Jackson era where the offense just doesn't put up enough points. And I have a lot of reservations with the game plan, but I'll let you tee us off on that.
Yeah, I thought coming into the game, it wasn't super difficult of a game plan. I think they needed to run the football and build play action off of it and not turn the football over, and they ended up doing none of those three. They went for a pass-heavy game script and kind of tried to go after the Chiefs' strength, and I did not think that was in the cards for them. And it showed. It's such like even the fact that game script almost did work. They have a Ronnie Stanley, the long developing play, and Lamar can't get the ball out because as soon as Bateman turns his head, Amenahu's ripping the football out of his hands, and then you have Zay Flowers fumble the football, and then you have the throw into triple coverage. It just feels like even with the bad game script, it feels like they weren't playing mentally sound football, and
the
with
penalties,
the game script,
man, 95 yards in penalties. Come on.
Yeah, so you would definitely like to see them run the football more, especially Gus Edwards clipping off that 10+ yard gain, and then even with Lamar running the football, he had a couple of big gains, and Justice Hill had 3 carries, and it just felt like they story of the past where there's been so many times where they're getting into these games and they've just decided to throw the football 50 times and drop back 46 times, and it's just like. There's only so much room for error when you don't really lean on a run game. You're just out there, keep slinging and slinging. Eventually the ball's going to bounce a certain way. So,
yeah. So I got quite a few thoughts based off of that. So first of all, Spagnuolo took away the intermediate level of the field just for the passing game. Lamar only completed 1 pass to the intermediate level this entire game. You and I both thought this was going to be a tight end game. I had Isaiah Likely over, and we also thought this was going to be a running game and a QB scrambling game. We had Beckham on the sideline telling Lamar, scramble, make a play. This was definitely not Lamar's best game. He's not absolved from this at all. But I do think some of it definitely falls on Harbaugh's feet, at his feet. He oversees the coordinators. So no matter what they say, he should be ultimately accountable to the game plan. And this is the Harbaugh MO. Since 2011, he's been a pass-heavy head coach in the postseason. And I've never been one to say, you got to run more, 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 you got to run until this game. Seriously, this is like the first game where I actually agree with that. 6 carries for the running backs against the 27th best run defense, who's also the 2nd best pass defense. I think, if you want to make the pie chart of blame, right, probably 33% Lamar, 33% Monken, and 33% Harbaugh. That's probably how it would divvy it up, And you can give Mahomes and them credit too, but just talking about blame, it's not getting it done. They're not scoring enough points in the playoffs, and it's disheartening because 2019 they had the best record in the regular season. They had Ronnie Stanley and Marlon Humphrey and Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews and Orlando Brown and Matthew Judon and all kind of premium position players on rookie contracts. And they didn't spend enough a receiver, in my opinion, to get it done. And this year, they had everything. And they leveraged the cap to build this team. And they still couldn't get it done. And it just kind of leaves me wondering, how are you going to get past Mahomes? What is the way to get past Mahomes? You don't have to answer right now. We can circle back to that. But it's tough, man. It's really tough. The AFC is not going to be easier next year. The AFC is going to be harder next year. And the Ravens are going to have less of a talent advantage. They're probably going to have a talent disparity against the top teams. And, I go back to the Lamar Jackson rookie contract years and wonder if they could have done more then to put another trophy in the case. And I definitely think they could have. But it is what it is now. Live and learn and look forward. But any other final thoughts on this game before we transition to the future?
Yeah, the pie chart, how I would divvy it up is, I'd probably go 40% Harbaugh, 20% Monken, 20% Lamar, 10% Flowers, and then the other 10% would be like divvied up among defensive plays allowed. Because even though they did their job, obviously they held them to 17 points. You're supposed to score points, but I thought the defense didn't set the tone early enough, and that they're letting them go down there and score twice in the first half. I felt like that was a punch in the mouth, and usually the standard for the defense is you punch them in the mouth first. So, yeah. But in terms of the rest of the game, it just sucks, man. To your point, we and kind of the transition in the next step. We both thought this was the best roster they've assembled in a while, best coaching staff they've assembled in a while, and you kind of see with how the league's reacting to it by poaching a whole bunch of our guys. It's hard. It's just you want to be an optimistic.
It's a missed opportunity. It really is.
You want to be an optimistic Ravens fan and think we can get back to this point, but it's hard to really assemble all those guys again and put together a team as good as this one. But just to put the cherry on the game, I guess the way you beat Mahomes is you got to outscore him. You just got to keep scoring and scoring and scoring. And I guess the segue into the offseason discussion is how do you build a team to really beat Mahomes? And if you're going to throw the football 40 times in the playoffs, you need a better offensive line that's athletic, and you need another playmaker that can do something for you. Because I feel like in this game, no Keaton Mitchell really burned us, not having that explosive playmaker. Zay did his job. Bateman and Lamar weren't on the same page, but not having that guy to take to really emphasize being an explosive offense, because there's only so much that really, two players can do. I feel like on the offense we have so far, with Zay and Lamar, I feel like there's only so much those two can do in terms of being an explosive playmaker.
Yeah, I really think we've seen a consistent pattern, and I'm going to get to your question in just a moment, Jason, of teams force the Ravens to pass outside the numbers deep in the playoffs. And that's Lamar's weakness. Let's be honest. That's not Lamar's specialty. And guess what? Tom Monk is not as good of a play caller as Andy Reid. And Lamar Jackson is not as good of a passer as Mahomes. So how do you level that playing field or put tilt in your favor? Get better receivers than him, because I really do think that that's the key. You got to take the top off the defense. That's really going to be. I mean, he hit 2 out of 7, I believe, deep shots, which isn't a bad percentage, but he needed more in the playoffs. Jason, to your question, is it time to consider moving away from a run-oriented game at this point? If simply sacking the box and playing the numbers game is enough to deter running, then maybe we focus on being pass first. I agree. I've been saying that for years. Then supplement to complementing setting up and run. Yes, I agree. You can't be run first in the regular season and then pass first in the postseason and expect that to work. You need reps. You need reps being pass first if that's what you want to do. So go ahead, Yuri. Let me hear your response to Jason. Then let's move it forward. Let's roll it forward.
Yeah, I think that the biggest concern to me is we don't have offensive linemen that can consistently hold up in one-on-one pass protection, and there's a lot of scheming that you can do, but as much as I like the John Simpson experience, he was a turnstile for most of that game, and he really did suffer down the stretch of the season. And Zeitler was great, Linderbaum was good, but the tackles, Ronnie Stanley let up 3 pressures, and Morgan Moses is playing injured, so
gave up a sack. Yeah,
it's tough. It's tough to run. It's tough to run the offense that Monken wants to run, where they go out and spread and they go out in 11 and they put all these receivers on the field. If you don't have the 5 up front that can hold up, and I don't think they have it at the moment.
The crazy thing is they're a top 3 O-line in the league according to PFF and a lot of the other prognosticators. The offensive line and as we transition into looking forward, the offensive line is my first item up on the personnel or the roster part. But I think the first piece we need to touch on is the coaching staff turnover. And the Ravens have lost Mike McDonald, Denard Wilson, probably going to lose Anthony Weaver, might lose, depending on who McDonald picks as his OC. The point is they're taking on water, as Eric DeCosta said last year about the receiving corp. They're taking on water. I'm not. How do you feel about the Zach Gore DC hiring? Because I'm okay with it, but I'm not happy about it necessarily.
Yeah, I like when I saw that. It's a great story and all, but I don't know a single thing about his play calling or really anything that pertains to being a defensive coordinator. So when I saw it, I'm like, cool, but I'm not really over the moon about it. I'm not really upset about it. I'm like, okay, well, we'll see how he handles the job. But I'm not like, this isn't an outside candidate who's super experienced or anything like that. It was just kind of like, okay, I guess that's what they're gonna go with. And
let me give you the. I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
Nah.
Okay, so here's the optimistic view. Players coach riles up the players. D'Amico Ryans gets them fired up on the sideline. Roquan Smith's boy, homegrown guy, self-made guy. And I have to imagine that the Ravens, Bisciotti made billions of dollars being a personnel man. So I kind of give him a little bit of the benefit of that one, I have to imagine that on the chalkboard, they put Orr and Weaver and Denard Wilson, and Orr had some things that they like to see. But I have a few concerns. Number one, he played well. Are they now going to bring back Patrick Queen because they want to have the best inside linebacker duo ever and lose in the first round of the playoffs every year? Or the other concern is I kind of want Wilson because I like to scheme it back to front. He only has 3 years of coaching a positional coach, Before that, he was an assistant or whatever. It's a risk, I'll give him the benefit of that on that. I really will. But they're gonna Chuck Smith could leave, any of these guys could leave. They got Greg Lewis interviewing the wide receivers coach, interviewing for an OC job. I mean, they had a damn good year. They uncovered some good things, and other teams want to try to steal some of that. And that's what's going on right now. Joe Ortiz is San Diego. I don't think it's a huge loss, but it is a loss. They probably have guys in the pipeline. They lost another analytics guy. And I expect they're probably going to lose a couple more guys here as McDonald fills out his staff too. So that's pretty much all I have to say about the coaching staff, but I don't think it's going to be as prolific as it was this year, which means to me you need more talented players than you had this year if you want to replicate this year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I probably wouldn't be surprised to see some of the players that played on our team this year go out and get some really nice contracts. Obviously, especially Queen, and then Matabike. We'll see what happens with that. You have Clowney, who just put up a career year, and I'm sure he might want to cash in another time. You have Van Noy, who's putting up once again near career year numbers. You have Darby, who's actually not that old, putting up a career year. So it's tough. There's going to be a lot of roster turnover, coaching staff turnover, and going into the offseason, how are you going to reassemble the staff where it isn't just a bunch of retread hardball guys, and it's something that's kind of similar to last year, and I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if it's possible to get all these guys. Greg Lewis was from KC. You have all these guys from all over the board, all over different places.
Oh, Wilson from the Eagles, yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, I don't think this probably was the best staff that Harbaugh will ever assemble in his tenure. And to those folks that wanted McDonald to take over head coach, and I respect that opinion. It's kind of funny to me, to be honest. I was like ready to jump off a bridge the last 3 years. Like, we have to make changes. The Ravens have to make changes. And all these people are like, no, stay the course. And then this year they actually did change their operating procedure and made it to the AFC Conference Championship game. And a lot of the people that were like, stay the course last year are like, we need changes now. And now I'm like, nah, they stepped up. They leveled up, But anyway, another top-line thought before we get into the positional off-season storylines. Just top-line, the salary cap. Okay, so there's a lot of different ways, and we were just talking to Dan about it, or I was talking to Dan. It's really, really hard to quantify how all in or prudently all in or levelized or whatever teams are, because they just use all these different maneuvers, and you can't really, it's so hard to, unless you want to sit there and analyze the third year, incentives on a contract for every single player in the NFL. It's almost impossible. But the long and the short of it is the Ravens borrowed essentially $30 million, at least $30 million. If you don't want to count restructures, just count void years and not only to be earned incentives to assemble this roster. And it paid dividends. They got further than they have been in a decade. The question now is, do they want to take that $30 million loss in 24 and field a Steelers caliber roster? Do they want to try to levelize and say, oh, we chased it, that was our chance, and we're going to now play the next 3 seasons at a $10 million salary cap deficit against these other contenders? Do you want to keep spending a little bit above the cap prudently? Maybe you sign Zeitler, but you don't sign Matabike, for example. Something like that. Or do they really want to push the pedal to the metal, do what the Saints did? Mind you, the Saints didn't get eliminated from the playoffs for the final week this season. I don't have a super strong opinion about this. I could co-sign any of the 3 of the 4 options. The one I don't want is, let's just try to get in the playoffs with a roster that is worse than the other teams and hope to get lucky. That's what I don't want. That's what they did for the last 10 years, and that's what I don't want. You either take a rebuild year, retool, recoup, and build another juggernaut 2 years from now, or you build a team that can stack up matchup wise with these really top dogs. That's how I think about it. I don't know where your head's at.
Yeah, I brought up that question the other day in the space. Whether do you want to dip back into the void years, or do you want to maybe be a little more reservist? And yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm not too strong either way, but you got to think about Lamar. I think Lamar Jackson's salary next year is like $780K. It's not a lot of money, and there's not going to be a lot of years where it's like that. And I mean, I haven't had a good look at the free agency pool yet. I know a couple of the names here and there. Is there going to be Clowney out there? Is there going to be an Odell? Are you going to have money to re-sign some of the vets that we have? I would say to push in again. Honestly, the NFL stands for not for long, and another year, and you never know what can happen. People can request trades. People can get season-ending injuries, and anything can happen. But that's what makes this year so much worse, is because it's one of Lamar's fully healthy years. But I would say that you go back into the well, go back to the credit card, open up another line of credit, and then at least open the line and then see if you can spend something. Because if you get out the free agent market and it's a barren wasteland, just let the money roll over and say, we at least open the line of credit. And we can save that money for next year. So,
Yeah.
I would say really put the chips back in, because it still is. I mean, there's going to be a lot of roster turnover, and they do have 8 draft picks, but just it's a cheap year of a quarterback, and it's a window. And when you extend that franchise quarterback, those first 3 years are kind of the window where they're somewhat affordable, and then those last 2 years are the balloon. So
I mean,
I'd go.
you can move the money around any way you want, but I do think that now is probably a good time to push. I'm not saying go crazy, trade all your first round picks like the Rams for 5 years or whatever, but close to that. You got to strike while the iron's hot, and the time is ticking away. Lamar is not getting more athletic. He's not getting more younger. And Jason says depends on Lamar's progression. He's worried he doesn't look like an established offensive identity outside of off-scheduled scramble drill plays. And let's jump in now to the personnel, because I think that's a good segue. Lamar doesn't have Kelce. He doesn't have a Kelce. And Andrews was a quasi Kelce, but he's not as good as Kelce. He doesn't have as much yak. It's probably the big separator between the two guys. I think you got it. Looking at this landscape, to me, if you got 30 million or 40 million or 20 million, whatever it is, and you're going to put it towards trying to get to the Super Bowl, to me, I want to put that towards the offense, the passing offense in particular, because that's what wins championships, and that's what can overcome for a shoddy run defense or a shoddy pass defense or maybe not the best rushing offense. That's the tide that lifts all boats, is passing offense. And in order to have a good passing offense, you need a good offensive line. I agree with your points earlier, Yuri. I think this line, while maybe not propped up as much by scheme as they were by Roman, were still propped up. And I think that one of the big offseason storylines and question marks is how are they going to retool this offensive line that I think needs a good bit of investment.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they built this line for Roman, really. They have these guys out there that are more plotters than athletic athletic offensive lineman, and I think at minimum you need a new left guard, and you need a new we'll see what happens with Zeitler, but assuming that Zeitler resigns and wants to stay here, I do think you probably need a new right tackle as well. I think you need someone a little more athletic. Well, I was actually surprised with how Stanley played those last couple of weeks. He seemed like he got back to form, but that's not really reliable. So there's that question as well. Do you want to risk another year of his health and only get 8 games out of him, and then you have Makari back out there playing again? So um, I agree though. I think they need significantly more athletic offensive linemen, and especially I think their tackle position that needs a lot of work. Um, but I was looking at a mock draft that Chris put out earlier, and he he drafted I was thinking about it, and it's similar to how KC is built. He drafted the center from Oregon, and and shifted him to guard, and having thinking about if you have that guy playing left guard, and then you have Linderbaum, and then you have Zeitler back. That's a pretty strong three, and maybe the stress on the tackles isn't as much. Kind of like how KC has it built for them. So that's an idea.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people, and Jason brought it up. I see a lot of people bring up Voorhees, but I'm not giving Voorhees a job. I think he can earn it if he wants to, but as high as I was on him last year coming out, he's it's kind of like Ojabo, where I'm like, well, we'll see what he gives us. If he gives something cool, but I'm not going to just give him a job just because he he was talked up. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they retool the offensive line and the receiver group, because it's both spots I think.
Well, that's my next one. Let me get my thoughts on O line, and then we'll go to the receiver. So I think Ronnie needs to take a pay cut. There's no question about it. To me, he's making too much. Give him cut his salary, cut 30% off his salary, and if he plays 17 games, he can get it back. That's only fair. It's only fair. They pay Ronnie a good bit of money. I'm cool with Moses and Falele at right tackle. I think Falele showed some flashes in the final quarter of the season when they were doing that rotation. That gives me a little bit of confidence. I really like the competition of Ben Cleveland and Andrew Voorhees at right guard. Voorhees has left guard versatility. I don't think Cleveland does necessarily. So my elixir to the offensive line, conundrum is you draft a Tyler Smith type left tackle who could play left guard for the first year. And then when Ronnie realizes he's not going to hit his playing time incentives and packs it in for the season, you let him take over. And to me, that's the panacea of what I want to see on the O-line. I don't want a interior O-line only guy added. I think they have enough of those. I think you need a tackle who's a natural tackle with guard center versatility. I think there's that guy out of Arizona who caught my eye a little bit, and I really haven't dug into the draft much at all yet, but you probably know his name.
Jordan Morgan.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm looking. Ronnie, I think, can give you league average play, but he should be making cornerstone money for league average play. So really, that might be the number one priority in the offseason. Get Ronnie to take a pay cut. I'll send him some Wagyu steaks on the low. It won't count against the cap, and we'll just call it a day.
That's fair. Yeah, I agree with the point of getting a left tackle prospect that can also slide inside. I think that's probably the biggest need is to your point, Tyler Smith prospect, someone who played left tackle, but if he can slide inside as well, and then it's not like a wasted draft pick. So
Let's
Yeah.
transition to the offensive weaponry because I think that's also another big time key to this offseason. The Ravens, Gus Edwards is a UFA. J.K. Dobbins is a UFA. Keaton Mitchell probably won't be ready till midseason. At the running back position, at tight end, you got all your guys on a contract, but at receiver, you're losing or potentially losing Beckham, Galore, and Duvernay. And to me, Tylan Wallace is not a wide receiver 3, a competent wide receiver 3 at this point.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like this is starting to come back to haunt them. Them and the 2022 draft avoiding running back in the fourth round when they have so many picks. I feel like that so many decent starting backs came out of that. At least someone that can hold a job. Jerome Ford, Rashad White, plenty of guys that came out of that fourth round that are all starting. Even Tyler Algier also came out of that fourth round. So, yeah, they need to draft a back. They need fresh legs. I would prefer someone who is on the lesser side of college carries and has a lot more room to quote unquote grow. And they need a running back, and they need. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to balance with not investing high capital in them, but also having someone that isn't terrible. But they just need someone that can take off the load really, and kind of maybe not be a bell cow back, but maybe be like an 800, 900 yard type guy. And it'll the running back I think is really important to have someone go out there and it really can be a 3 down back as well. And that was supposed to be JK, and obviously it didn't work out, and he's gotten injured. And to your point, Keaton Mitchell won't be around till later in the season. And then flipping to wide receiver really quick. They just need someone else that can win. We'll see what happens with Bateman if he gets a trade and requests out, or he's still here. But even then, I still think they need just one more guy that can win, and maybe be a 3-level receiver. So, Chris was making a good point. Chris was joking, was making a good point that Lamar's had the most success with guys that can work horizontally, and get open and be that kind of Hollywood Brown, Zay Flowers type of guy. So, I mean, it's a good question. Do you want a 50-50 guy, or do you want a guy that wins vertically with the speed? Do you want a guy who can maybe play in the 1 to 2 level, where they can work the intermediate, they can work out of the slot, and they can work the Z, but they can't really work the X. And here to Jason's point, they need a receiver that can beat zone and identify leverage in zone. Very fair point. They definitely do. We'll see how the mold fits over the next couple of months.
Yeah, I'm going to push back on some of that if you don't mind. I am firmly against the idea of a 3-down back. 3-down backs get hurt. And we've seen that 2-down backs get hurt. We've seen that too. I am firmly in the camp of running back by committee, and you get as cheap as you can. You got to find a way to free up some money for the offensive line, for the receivers, for the quarterback, and the pass defenders. And running back is by far the best place to do it. But yeah, take a guy in the 6th round. Fine. As far as the receivers are concerned, I'll also push back on that too. Lamar may have done his best work with underneath receivers, but the reason why he's not winning in the playoffs is because the boundary receivers aren't making the plays that he needs. And I personally would like a Mike Williams type this offseason to round the receiving core. You don't have to bring back Odell. You don't have to bring back Aguilar. If you can find a veteran that has a skill set, I'm down with that. If you can find a rookie that has a skill set, that sounds good to me too. But you need at least 3 matchup receivers. You're not beating Kansas City with Bateman and Zay and Tyler Willis. You need another guy that can make that defense pay for selling out to stop the tight ends in that intermediate area. And I'm not going to say they didn't have it. They just didn't make the plays this year. If they can repeat it, the same caliber, quality of receivers they had this year, I'm good with it. If they can upgrade, even better. But you got to beat KC with pass offense. To your point, Yuri, you got to outscore them. And that means quarterback, offensive lines, and receivers. So that's where I am on receivers. Let's flip it over to the defensive side of the ball. And to me, pass rush. You got Matabike, one of the top 5 most valuable unrestricted free agents, according to most of these national lists. You got Jadeveon Clowney, who was top 5 in pass rush win rate for most of the year. You got Van Nolen, all unrestricted free agents. How do you try to maintain this pass rush? Because to me, especially without, I don't think Zach Orr is going to hit the ground running the same way Mike McDonald did. He didn't cut his teeth the same way. So you need players, maybe more than the scheme, to get up to the quarterback.
Yeah, and the Ravens, the Ravens don't have a lot of draft capital, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to really. I mean, I don't see them spending a top 100 pick on a pass rusher. They maybe defensive lineman if Matabike leaves, but in terms of an edge, I mean, they've already spent so many high draft picks on that spot. So I think it's going to be more vets. And I'm kind of feeling the same way with corner. You're just going to have to vet it out and put vets on the field and get these maybe more experienced guys that are coming in late for cheap. And maybe if you got a BPA situation in the 4th round and you can take one. But they don't. I mean, they have Tavius, Ojabo, Owe, and Jeremiah Moon got poached.
Moon's gone.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it, man. What are you at on Matabike? What's your top dollar? Where are you at on Matabike? What's your top dollar for Matabike?
19. I think 19 would probably top me out.
Yeah. I'm pretty much there. Front of the show, Jason. What is it? Huddle Films asked me, or I saw us probably, I guess, is it the best defensive tackle season in Herb's history? I think Nada had a better season. He's at the end of the day, he's a trailer, not a tractor. And I don't want to pay any trailers more than 20 mil. I love to have him back. I love that Nigerian connection. I like to see that Matabike, Owe, Ojabo trio, taking quarterbacks back to Africa next year. But I don't know. I'm more in the tag and trade camp and get more draft capital. I think he may be more of a product of scheme than individual talent on Matabike. And I'm bullish on Travis Jones. They re-up Pierce. They got Brody on a contract. Brody played pretty good in the postseason. Way better than he did in the regular season, I thought.
Yeah.
So at outside backer, to me, I want to pay Clowney. I really do want to play Clowney. That's probably like my number one guy that I want to pay. He just brings a lot to the table. I thought it was interesting listening to the clean out interviews, and Kyle Van Noy was calling the Ravens they, and Jadeveon Clowney was still calling the Ravens we. So read into that what you want, but I do feel like he has a little piece of that. The most pressured team in the league this year, but how much of that was coordinator driven? How much of that was scheme driven? It remains to be seen, you know. And again, let's put our bullseye on Patrick Mahomes and stop pretending that there's somebody else we need to put our bullseye on, because that's the team we got to put our bullseye on, and you got to get out to them before, and that's the way. And on that note, let's transition to the secondary, because to me that's the final big question of the offseason. We saw Kansas City's cornerbacks smother the Ravens. And the people that want to say cornerbacks don't matter, I point you to that game.
Yeah, it's another. We have 4 guys under contract, but 2 of them are spent most of their time this season on IR. So you have Humphrey, you have Stevens. Another spot where you can't. I mean, you'd like to get another young guy in the room, with Humphrey kind of starting to fall off just a tiny bit. But I mean, do you want to spend again and kind of do what we did this year and get Yasin and get Darby and get Mollett? Or do you want to maybe draft a couple guys in the late round and kind of just make it a whole young room? We'll see. But I think the secondary, it needs. I think that for me, really the biggest need to me for the secondary is another safety. Another safety that can come in and let Hamilton continue to do what he's doing and not make Hamilton a full-time second, cover 2, the second safety back type safety. I want Hamilton to still be able to play down in the box, but I definitely would not pay Geno Stone whatever he's going to ask. But I would look to add another safety into the room, and hopefully whether that's through the draft, through free agency. I think that's my biggest concern to me is getting somebody else that can play split safety.
Yeah, very well said, Yuri. Very well said. Astute points. Geno, my top out on Geno is probably like $4 million, which is probably an insult to him after a 7-pick season. But they definitely need a safety. You got to have 5 starting caliber DBs, and right now they have 4. And really, you need depth in the perimeter. To me, that's the thing. I want Darby back for sure. If you can get Darby back for double pay of what you paid him this year, based off of what the tape you put out, is good. But I'm wide open and complete cosign. Complete in if they draft a corner in the first round. Nate Wiggins, Kool-Aid McKinstry. I've been mocked to the Ravens a little bit. You have Marlowe and Stevens. Stevens coming up on the last year of his contract. He faded down the stretch. He was picked on. People don't want to say it, but he was picked on. And you got Hamilton in a slot, which means you need a safety. I mean, I'd really like to get – I think you got to get a defensive back high or pay a guy. One of the two. Because you have to expect defensive regression. There's no chance they're going to replicate the same exact defensive proficiency without their coordinator, without several of their position coaches, and without a lot of their marquee players. Jadeveon Clowney is a number 1 overall draft pick that the Ravens signed for cheap. That opportunity does not come around every single year. And I don't want people to bank on that. So, to me, you invest in pass defense and you invest in pass offense, and running backs and linebackers can get to the back of the line of the size and shape pool, because there's a lot of size and shape guys that fit that role. We don't need BPA picks. We need targeted, specific picks.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. They definitely need to take positional picks and players that are that they need, not BPA, just to take them. So
Imagine going into a draft needing an offensive tackle, a wide receiver, a cornerback, and a pass rusher. Guess what? Guess why they're in that position? Can you guess here?
they've spent their first round picks on BPA for like the past 5 years.
Yeah, they draft running backs and linebackers and trade picks for linebackers and pay linebackers and pay running backs and just do the inefficient things. So let's be efficient here. You got Lamar Jackson, you got John Harbaugh, you got Kyle Hamilton, you got Roquan Smith, you got Zay Flowers. Do you want to build a regular season team? Look at you, Eric DaCosta. You want to build a regular season team, or you want to build a postseason team? We'll find out tomorrow at the press conference.
I don't think we'll find out tomorrow, but I understand. I understand your sentiment. They call it Voss Liars Luncheon. They call it the Liars Luncheon. So I don't think we'll find out anything tomorrow. I think we'll just hear more of the same, and we'll move into the offseason.
I always tell the truth, even when I lie.
Yeah, well, that's fair. That's fair. Any final thoughts here, Voss?
I don't know, bro. What's going on with Victoria Weeks? She's coming over later or what?
Coming over later. Let me tell you after the stream who that is.
Okay, fair enough.
You'll think, what the fuck, with that comment. But yeah, you got any final thoughts here?
Man, I don't know, man. I've been a Ravens fan for a long time. And I've seen the ups and downs and the trials and tribulations. And this is a dividing line this season. Losing coaches, losing players. Just don't go back to that contend for the wild. We just want to make the wild card every season bullshit. Just don't go back to that. That's all I ask. If you go back to that, you're just lost. You're lost in the wilderness.
Yeah.
You either want to win the Super Bowl or you don't. You either build a team to win the Super Bowl or you don't. And if Eric DaCosta says tomorrow that he wants to build a team to win the AFC North, he's a clown. Because the Ravens have won the AFC North and got smoked in the playoffs too many damn times. Look at me, DaCosta. We don't want that anymore. Build a team as capable as this team this year and put the irons in the fire and see what happens. Don't tell me that you're going to win the Super Bowl with a B-plus roster, because we've seen that the last 10 years before this year. Okay? That's all I ask. I will take 2 years of 2 wins easily. And even if you don't win it, but you got to at least try. Just at least try, my guy.
All right. They got to try. I agree. They got to try. So with that, boss, we're going to go ahead. It's a somber way to end the season. But we take a look into the off season and we turn a new page. So appreciate everybody for joining. And we will see you guys next time.